We have quite the collection of people here today, and I want to thank you all for your interest and commitment to the work of the Commission and our higher education system. I do want to call your attention that there is an overflow room if we get too cramped and connected by video. So I want to make you aware of that. We have what may seem like a short agenda, but it's actually very important, and there's a lot of interest in some of the action items we have today, and so I ask all of us to be aware of the time. I think it's important that we are able to make through the issues that have come before us, and so I think if we work together on this, we can probably accomplish that. Well, I guess I welcome you at that point. We have a roll call.
Yes, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. I will now call roll. Greg Heyman.
Present.
Emily Simnett.
Present.
Demetrius Davis Boucher.
Present.
Michael Dembro.
Present.
Richard Devlin.
Present.
Helen Edwards.
Yeah.
Colonel Fajardo.
Present.
Evelyn Coker.
Here.
Devin Lawson. Teresa Martinez.
Here.
Jen Proctor Andrews.
Here.
Mary Middleton. Jennifer Smith.
Here.
Dale Yamasaki.
Present.
Thank you. That is roll, and we have a quorum, Chair. I will notify you when Commissioner Lawson and Middleton join.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much, Governor. We first is an approval of the February Commission meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those. Does anybody have questions or corrections? And if not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have that. Thank you so much. We'll go to our executive director report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to provide a verbal update this month. You have in your packets a written update that touches on several items of considerable interest from the last month, including the work that we're doing with Southern Oregon University. So welcome questions, comments offline or at any point about any of that. I will note as it relates to today's meeting and just frankly apologize about timing. You're going to find yourselves really stretched and stressed to get through today's agenda within the roughly day that we've allotted. I've done over 100 of these full HECC commission meetings now over 12 years, and generally we've done pretty well on timing. I did not anticipate or set aside the amount of time that really I think we'd like to have for today's agenda. And so it's just going to be challenging to get it done within the time allotted. So again, I apologize and I appreciate yours and the public's sort of patience. It's difficult to project. And in this case, we just missed the mark and probably should have allotted an extra couple of hours for this meeting more than we did, but we'll do our best and see how it goes.
Thanks. Thank you. That also included the budget update.
Yes, and there is also in your packet a update on our budget spending against our within the year.
We have a governor's report.
Yes. You. Sarah Mean on behalf of the Governor's Office.
Yeah, hello everybody. Good to see everybody on camera. Apologies, I'm not there in person. Sarah Means with the Governor's Office, Workforce Higher Ed and Economic Development Advisor. Again, I'm going to do my best to be brief, but we thought, and in my conversations with Ben last week, I guess it was, we thought it would be important for this group to hear a little bit more about the prosperity initiatives that are coming out of the Governor's Office. And so I'm going to do my best to run through a slide deck here real quick. I believe it is part of your packet, if I'm not mistaken. But here, let me share my screen. And we can just jump right into it. So here, sorry, let me get myself oriented. Okay, so again, there are clear direct ties to higher education and economic development. I think we all can agree to that. And so we wanted to make sure that you had the history here and an update on what's happening on this very sort of quick process over the last number of months and leading into June. The Prosperity Roadmap was announced by the governor in December, and it really is intended to guide the state's economic development work, both in addressing some challenges and headwinds that we are experiencing now here in Oregon, but also really as a vision document to help really build an Oregon where economic opportunity and prosperity is available to all Oregonians. So I mentioned some headwinds, really, as we saw it and as the governor saw it, there needed to be some coordinated statewide action to help reverse the trends that we were seeing. Some of these trends are not surprising to anybody in this room, certainly slowing population growth, elevated unemployment, and business outmigration. So the roadmap is really intended to address these three specific headwinds. The roadmap addresses some vision and goals, really outlines what it's intended to do here. It's really pretty straightforward. Retain and grow business, reduce the barriers to businesses here in Oregon, catalyze job creation, really focusing in on high value opportunities for job creation here in the state, and really overall just accelerate economic growth and modernize our economic development systems to help do that. There are 6 strategic initiatives listed in the roadmap. Some of these are going to be a little bit more visible, and you may have heard of some of these. Really, the first right out of the gate was to recruit some additional leadership and expertise to drive the roadmap. That included bringing on a chief prosperity officer here in the governor's office. Tim Knope was announced as that chief prosperity officer in January. And then also the Governor's Prosperity Council, something I feel certain you probably have all heard about. But again, that is a group of business leaders, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, I believe. But group of business leaders really help to provide some guidance and recommendation to the governor on the roadmap. It then outlines several other initiatives. Establishing a fast track program, I'll talk more about that, but that was part of some 2026 legislation that I have the honor of leading on behalf of the governor in the short session. Also reduce barriers to investment and growth. That also had a component in the 2026 legislation, as did modernizing and strengthening Oregon's economic development tools. And explore targeted tax changes to spur living wage job creation and increased GDP. That's something that the Prosperity Council, frankly, is digging in on pretty significantly. And then really, partner with businesses and communities for results. So those are the initiatives within the Prosperity Roadmap. A little bit more on House Bill 4084. That was the governor's economic development bill in the short session. It did 4 distinct things. It created a fast track permitting program to encourage large scale investment and accelerate project timelines, which is we know is something that is needed here in the state to help us be competitive for these economic development investments, private investments. Permit audits, that this is really around transparency and accountability for permits that have an impact on economic development projects. Enterprise zone modernization, that really the bill here expanded access to this opt-in program. It's a really one of our best economic development tools that are used by local jurisdictions across the state. So it did some modernization of that program. And then it asked the legislature to make an investment, and they did so in industrial land site readiness. So there was an investment made in an existing program at Business Oregon. What we know is that industrial site land readiness is a big barrier here in the state. So a little bit more on the Prosperity Council. This is a 16-member council that is going to be developing recommendations, both near and long-term recommendations to the governor on her prosperity roadmap and how to implement that moving forward. These are very actionable steps. What the governor has asked for, I should say, is very actionable steps that can accelerate Oregon's economic growth. And really the creation of good paying jobs and help both recruit and retain businesses here in Oregon. Those recommendations are due to the governor by June 30th. Again, a very accelerated timeline here. And based on the council's charter that was developed, they will be focusing in on three focus areas, business climate being one of them, and that really sort of speaks to regulatory and tax policy type topic areas. Workforce, where this group certainly has an interest in really sort of modernizing our workforce development systems and making sure that our training programs and workforce development opportunities are very well connected into our employers and growing sectors here in Oregon. And then tools for growth, and that really sort of ranges anything from incentives to land use and updating our economic development tools that really are more reflective of today's economic and business ecosystems. As you might imagine, the Prosperity Council was quite popular, and everybody wanted an opportunity to be able to express their voice to this body, which is understandable, and we wanted to make sure that there was that opportunity. So the leadership of the Prosperity Council really set up a robust community engagement system. There are and have been numerous business roundtables. There was a survey. It's now closed. It closed at the end of March, but there were nearly 3,000 responses to that survey. And I actually need to get the survey response, the feedback, the collated feedback back over. I want to get it to Ben because higher education definitely was mentioned. It pulled out in the responses of that survey and something that is very closely connected to this work. And then there's a number of facilitated community and sector discussions. Many of those are being facilitated through our Regional Solutions program, but two that I really wanted to highlight for this group is the Workforce Development Listening Session. That is actually happening tomorrow. These are invited tables. What I'll say about workforce is a number of community colleges, both actually through the RSACs, but then also with the workforce development session, are participating in that particular opportunity. And then we also pulled a university presidents roundtable. We're pulling that together in May. All of the public university presidents had expressed interest in participating in a conversation with the council. And so we were able to work to facilitate to make that happen. To my knowledge, all of the public university presidents will be participating in that conversation in early May. So next steps, I've talked a little bit about some of these, but we are continuing to collate all of the feedback and survey responses and really what we're hearing out of these listening sessions to provide to the Prosperity Council. That will be done next week at their next meeting. And all of that is really just sort of helping to formulate the recommendations that the Prosperity Council will be providing to the governor by the end of June. The Prosperity Council is a time-limited thing. It sunsets at the end of June, and so really that work then comes back into the governor's office. So for us and the leadership in this office to collate and then sort of formulate that action plan moving forward and what that looks like. I should say that what we expect to see from the Prosperity Council are recommendations that sort of maybe fit multiple buckets. One would be just things that the governor could do right now with her executive authority, maybe through an executive order. Then opportunities and recommendations that would fit into more of a legislative cycle, in particular for 2027, the upcoming long session, and then maybe longer term opportunities as well that may require just additional engagement and engagement from multiple partners. So with that, I'll stop sharing. I think I've probably taken all of my time. That was about 10 minutes. I just want to let this group know, please do reach out directly to me. Ben knows how to find me, certainly. Or if you have my contact information, please don't hesitate to, if you have questions or comments, we are happy to have further conversation. But I'll stop there. The conversation.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate that. Any quick questions? Yes. Okay.
Thanks so much for your presentation. Thank you, Chair Heyman. I just wanted to acknowledge really fast that I was a little bit disappointed to see that there's no inclusion of higher education institutions on the Prosperity Council, considering that Oregon's higher education institutions contribute billions of dollars to the state annually, and that we've had difficulty in the past 10, 20 years preparing the quantity of workforce that we need in Oregon internally, and have had to rely on internal and external migration to Oregon from other states in order to fulfill our workforce needs. So considering that any growth of the workforce is going to require the parallel development of post-secondary education and workforce training in tandem with any investment made. I was a little bit disappointed to see that higher education did not get a seat at the table on this council, especially considering, where we're at right now.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just respond quickly. That is exactly why we are doing both the workforce development sessions and having a special roundtable for university presidents. The decision was made early on that we wanted to make sure we were including all or as many as possible voices, and if we provided just a single seat at the table, we felt that may limit actually the voice. So we wanted to make sure that that was not the case. So that is why you're seeing actually a special session dedicated to university presidents, and then also the workforce development session where we are making sure that community college voices are being, and actually I think the association and multiple community college presidents have been involved in that particular session as well.
Thank you so much. I think we'll move on to our next one. Thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciate your taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you.
Public testimony. I have a couple of sort of rules as we move into this. We have a lot of people wanting to provide public testimony today. I think you have the list, Guthrie. Because of the number of people, we're limiting each individual testimony to 2 minutes. It's just so you can plan ahead, be aware of that. I also want to call your attention to there are 4, I believe, written testimonies that have been submitted, and so you hopefully have been able to see those. In addition to that, we'll receive public testimony. Now, I do want to remind us that I suspect that most of this will be related to a specific item on the agenda today, and we will allow a lot of time for us to discuss that item when we get to the agenda. So think about it in terms of we'll receive this testimony and then we'll move on in our agenda. Also, for those who are providing testimony, would you just for the sake of the record, provide your name and if it isn't obvious, the topic that you're addressing in your testimony. Thank you. We'll call on the first public testimony.
Yes, and I will just know we have our 2-minute timer up there. I will try to give folks a wave at the 30-second mark. So first up, Juliet Long.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time today. My name is Juliet Long, and I'm here representing the BAS Consortium. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge our K-12 partners, many of whom are joining us today online for public comment or for attending the program presentation by Donna Llewellyn. District leaders across Oregon have been actively engaged throughout this process, and today's decision matters deeply to the schools and communities working to build a sustainable long-term educator workforce. As you've heard over the past several months, the most important message we want to leave you with today is the breadth and depth of support for BASE across the consortium's regional areas. In previous testimony, you've heard from students seeking local pathways into teaching, from rural and urban school districts, from state legislators, from community industry partners, and from philanthropic organizations that have invested directly in this work. This testimony reflects a shared understanding. Oregon faces urgent educator workforce shortages, and existing pathways are not meeting the needs of the many place-devoted working and rural students. BASE is designed specifically to meet this need. It expands access to elementary and education programs and provides something out-of-state online programs cannot: preparation that is intentionally aligned to Oregon licensure through TSPC, grounded in Oregon standards, and supported by supervised clinical experiences in local schools overseen by local education professionals. Just as importantly, BASE creates pathways for students to prepare where they live and to teach in the communities they already call home. Students will choose BASE because it's affordable, accountable to Oregon's educator requirements, connected to regional districts, and structured to support completion and long-term retention in their local communities. Ultimately, this program is good for students, and good for communities, and good for Oregon's workforce. It reduces reliance on out-of-state teacher preparation program by keeping both talent and public investment here in Oregon. I also want to note that timing matters. The consortium is prepared to submit for accreditation and TSPC approval next week. However, these steps cannot move forward until HECC approval is granted. Additionally, Rogue and Columbia Gorge must complete further approvals, as it will be their first bachelor's degree program, including financial aid and other accreditation requirements. We respectfully ask for your support and vote to move this work forward today.
Thank you.
Abby Lee.
Chair Heyman, Commissioner, thank you so much for your time. I'm Albie Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Oregon Community College Association, and we appreciate your position today. And we also appreciate the unprecedented nature of this process. We don't typically come and ask you directly for approval for programs. That comes through staff. I want to assure you that we've gone through a robust and rigorous review process before even presenting to staff. And we have answered every question. We have met in every meeting, and we have provided additional information throughout this year-long process. And what we are proposing for you to consider today is a solution and not status quo. I want to address particularly a transfer concern about these pathways going to master's programs. Our neighbors in Washington State are leaders in this. They have a BAS in education program. They heard similar concerns when they were walking through this process, and it is a model that they are proud of and that we can also be proud of. It articulates directly to public universities, master's degree programs, and should our universities in Oregon decide that they are not going to take a regionally accredited program that accepts licensed teachers, we have a ready pathway in Washington State. We have ready pathways with Grand Canyon University. We have ready pathways with Western Governors University and many other private universities in our state who are ready to take students from the BAS education program who are in their communities serving this teacher education crisis. Again, at a time where we need capacity, access, and affordability, this is what we are bringing you today. We have a room full of faculty subject matter experts who are here ready to answer any questions you have remaining that we have not provided to staff. We urge your support for this. Julia has pointed out why the timeliness is important. We also are offering to limit the cohort to address our university partner concerns. We care deeply about that, and we think limiting that cohort will provide the opportunity to celebrate these impacts and to make this a program that you're proud of. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Abby.
Angelica Salazar Garcia. Angelica Salazar Garcia. Ariana Morales Sanchez. Ariana Morales Sanchez. Patricia Lerma.
Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Sidney, Executive Director Cannon, and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Patricia Lerma. I am an alumna of Portland State University and a dual language immersion teacher at Rose Elementary in Canby. I moved to Oregon from Mexico at 14, and I had to navigate high school while learning English. Since I was a child, I dreamed of becoming a teacher. My path began at Clackamas Community College, where I navigated the ESL and Pathways to Progress program. The road to my degree had its obstacles, balancing public transportation, part-time work as an instructional assistant, and full-time studies. But my family's support was key to transferring to PSU bilingual teacher pathway. I wasn't able to complete my degree in the traditional 4-year timeline. The DTP family, the PSU and Canby communities, and my professors guided me. PSU professor Dr. De La Vega even hired tutors and advocated for me when I struggled with that CBEST exam. After graduating, I began teaching in the Canby School District, and in 2023, I completed my master's degree at PSU. Sharing my culture and my Mexican roots with my 28 students allows me to help them navigate their own educational journeys in 2 languages. Earlier this year, I received the Oregon Association for Bilingual Education's Teacher of the Year award. This is a great honor, and I couldn't have done it alone. My students and my family are my inspiration. Dual immersion education transcends positively by embracing bilingualism, biliteracy, academic excellence, and culture. PSU and my community helped turn my childhood dream into a reality, and I am honored to pay that forward every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
George Mendoza. George Mendoza?
Here.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hammond, Executive Director Cannon, members of the commission. My name is George Mendoza. I serve as a superintendent of LeGrand School District. I'm also an Eastern Oregon University alum, trustee, former vice chair and board chair of EOU. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. From my perspective, as a superintendent, Oregon absolutely needs more teachers. I do know and believe that many rural communities experience a shortage of applicants for their open teaching positions. I do know that it's difficult to fill jobs, find substitutes, and fill specialized certified positions such as counseling and special education. But I also want to be clear, the issue is not that Oregon lacks teacher preparation programs or professors and administrators that can support high school and adult pathway pipeline initiatives. We have that. In fact, the state of Oregon and EOU in particular have strong accredited programs. I also believe that we have many other universities, both public and private, that are already producing high quality educators and supporting pathways into advanced credentials. Creating additional pathways, particularly new Bachelor of Applied Science degrees, does not solve the core problem of creating more teachers. In fact, it risks duplicating efforts, losing and stretching finite resources that our state allocates, further crumbling and eroding existing education program degree systems that are already in place. The real challenge is access, awareness, and alignment. We need to better connect prospective educators to pathways that already exist. So my top recommendations are as follows. Prioritize coordination between accredited colleges and universities over duplication. Strengthen existing community college and university pathways. Remove system barriers, particularly around transfer pathways, advising and degree alignment that slow the progress or discourage completion of teaching degrees altogether. Develop clear, consistent, easy to navigate systems. Keep Oregon students in our state. We have far too many leaving out of state to complete their degrees. We need to focus on helping our students to choose state programs and support them and help them find employment. And we need to work together statewide to recruit, encourage, and support and retain educators. I feel if we align our systems better, that's the top priority versus creating more unnecessary complexity. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then next we have Diana Mason, and I'll note oral and written testimony included as item 4.0A. Diana.
Yes. I'm here. Thank you. Good morning, Director Cannon and HECC commissioners. My name is Diana Mason, and I am an associate professor in the School of Planning, Public Policy, and Management at the University of Oregon. I'm also currently serving as the president of the University Senate, the UO Senate, which is a representative body of elected faculty, staff, and students. I would like to thank Director Cannon for agreeing to speak to the UO Senate on April 29th, and we're looking forward to having you join us. I'm here today to discuss the HECC study authorized by HB 4124. The UO Senate approves of the attention to fiscal transparency, affordability, access, and student success. However, we want to share some ongoing concerns we have about the study. First, we are concerned about the timeline of the study. To conduct a statewide audit of over 20 colleges and universities in less than 6 months leaves many questions unanswered about the potential quality of the data. We are also concerned about the ability to adequately engage in meaningful feedback with a large number of stakeholders that universities have, including students, faculty, staff, alumni, and workforce partners. Second, we call for caution on the potential for recommendations related to program review, integration, and closure that would violate the fundamental principles of academic freedom at our institutions. Lastly, we want to ensure that any recommendations that flow from the study also consider the relative size of the financial investment Oregon makes in our higher education system. Oregon ranks 46th in the nation in per student funding for its public universities. The result is that many of the financial challenges facing our universities today have as much to do with these structural issues as it does with an institution's efficiency. We hope to be a resource for you and the organizations conducting this study, so please feel free to reach out, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bonnie Mann. Bonnie Mann, are you online?
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Bonnie Mann. I am a member of the Executive Council at United Academics at University of Oregon. And I want to speak on shared.
Hold on one second. Let me, I'm listening to a hearing. Hold on one second.
Bonnie, can you hear us? Can you please unmute again and proceed?
I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. I want to speak on shared governance and HB 4124. Thank you to the legislators who worked to pass HB 4124 and to the HECC for your efforts to implement the bill. HB 4124 declares a state of emergency for higher education in Oregon, which is, as Diana just mentioned, 46th in the nation for funding, per student funding. That emergency is financial in one sense. Lack of public funding has meant university presidents turn into pseudo CEOs, and boards of trustees are concerned almost exclusively with converting our universities into marketing and investment opportunities for private donors and students. Entangled with these developments is the issue of the governance of our public universities. Yesterday, Julian Castro spoke at the University of Oregon and reminded us that the health of our democracy depends on how robust our practices of democratic life are on the most local institutional levels. The democratic system of checks and balances built into our public higher education institutions is in crisis. Shared governance policies and practices that ideally divide power between faculty, students, and administrators are minimized, sidelined, and ignored by administrators anxious to fulfill their CEO-like job descriptions. The lack of robust oversight practices by legislative bodies like this one and by the governor's office, where a de facto, I'm not saying it's intentional, a de facto rubber stamp practice has enabled corporatist models of governance to self-reproduce, to metastasize without regard to the larger mission of higher education in the state. I ask this body to ensure that the democratic governance structures, the system of checks and balances that is supposed to ensure that our higher education institutions serve the public good be a central part of the study conducted by this body. I look forward to seeing your recommendations for how those checks and balances can be strengthened. And I and other members of the faculty union at the University of Oregon stand ready to help in any way that we can. Please call on us if we can assist with the study in any way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra Porter. Sandra Porter,
Good morning.
please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Commissioners, thank you for taking the time to meet with us this morning. My name is Sandy Porter, and I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Treasure Valley Community College, located in Ontario, Oregon. I come to you today to ask for your full support of the Bachelor of Applied Science in Elementary Education, or BASE, as we lovingly call it, that is on your consent agenda. BASE is a collaborative, statewide effort designed to meet a dire workforce issue in our local rural communities. Community colleges are charged with finding innovative ways to meet workforce demands. Strong partnerships across the state allow community colleges to smartly leverage resources to meet local needs. We are seeing this on our campus in part as we are part of the collective to launch the Bachelors of Nursing this fall, a trailblazing effort to meet workforce needs. We have approached the BASE in the same spirit of innovation and collaboration to meet a similar need. We also remain steadfast in our commitment to our four-year educational partners. The workforce demand is so great that our BASE efforts won't put a dent in the need of our regional communities. It simply allows a small, targeted population of students to skill up and serve their local communities. TBCC is committed to a continued partnership with our regional universities to strengthen transfer pathways for our students. We look forward to sharing space for recruitment and providing a continued seamless transfer option. The risk of a no vote today is that education students in rural Oregon, particularly in Eastern Oregon, will continue to seek higher education with private, for-profit, out-of-state institutions that aren't aligning them well with their home state and communities. Please support community colleges in our mission to meet workforce needs, and the evidence before you is clear that this yes vote will make an impact on education in rural Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher McMorrin.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Christopher McMorrin, and I am the new Assistant Director at the Coalition of Oregon Public Universities. So I'm actually not here to talk about BASE or anything. I'm here to say hi. I will echo though just a little bit about what OPU has been up to recently. HB 4124 has been at the top of mind for all of our institutions. And we've started meeting with some of the folks from Oregon Consensus, and we're looking forward to seeing how that process goes. There were a few things that we just wanted to emphasize as that moves forward. The first is the importance of regular, ongoing, on-the-ground engagement with universities, perhaps through a research advisory council, some type of body where you can really rely on the expertise that you just heard about as that study moves forward. A good example of that for us was the NCHEM study, which was released in September of 2022. Another important piece is having sort of data set uniformity, making sure that everyone is working off of the same data that we can all kind of agree is reality. And then the last piece, which is the common theme, is just that kind of regular communication, making sure that we're communicating with you where we can be helpful, that we're hearing about the study, both from HECC as well as the consultants. So we're looking forward to seeing how that process goes. And then I also wanted to flag that we got our consolidated funding request in on Monday, and we are going to present to the FNA subcommittee early next month. And we're looking forward to working with all of you and the commission staff as we come to a consolidated budget request. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with you all in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
AJ Romero Janelle.
Morning. Chair Hammond, Vice Chair Summit, Executive Director Cannon, and members of the Commission, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is AJ Romero Gimel. I'm the graduate student trustee at Portland State University. I represent a student body that is the future backbone of Oregon's workforce. My peers are not just students, they are the front line of our state's professional future, including Oregon's future teachers. I'm here today to share the concerns PSU graduate students have regarding proposals for Bachelors of Applied Science degrees in education. At a time of limited resources and as this agency conducts a comprehensive study of our state's higher education ecosystem, this decision feels premature. I recognize that a lot of work has gone into these discussions and that you've heard from people across the state about the importance of teacher prep pipelines. As someone who grew up in Oregon, I recognize the importance of ensuring that our schools have well-trained teachers to shape our future. However, my peers in the College of Education are concerned about what this could mean for the limited resources currently available to teacher prep programs at four-year universities. Personally, as someone who's been following HB 4124, I'm concerned that these proposals may be better considered following the completion of this study. Having started my own journey at a community college, I know firsthand that PSU, like other institutions, provide a depth of professional development and specialized support for transfer students. We should be strengthening transfer pipelines and empowering proven four-year programs, especially teacher preparation. As the graduate student trustee, I would like to personally invite the commission to meet my graduate peers in the College of Education at Portland State University to better understand the supportive pipelines already available and the importance of protecting investments in existing teacher prep programs with so many students, including educators like Patricia, who you heard remarks from earlier today. Thank you for your leadership during a time of great uncertainty and challenge for Oregon's higher education ecosystem. And thank you for considering a pause on this conversation as this agency helps shape the future of post-secondary education in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dave Stone. Dave Stone.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dave Stone. I'm the superintendent of the Prospect School District here in Southern Oregon. I'm here to strongly support Rogue Community College's proposed addition to elementary and SPED licensure programs. In rural Oregon, we're facing a persistent and growing teacher shortage, especially in elementary and in special education. Rogue Community College's program represents a true grow your own solution. In rural communities, we don't have the luxury of a large applicant pool relocating from outside of the region. Instead, our future educators are already here, working in our schools as classified staff, instructional assistants, and long-term substitutes. They're committed to our students. They understand our communities, and they are far more likely to stay long-term if given a clear and accessible pathway to licensure that is accessible and affordable. What makes this program especially impactful is its flexibility. A program designed with working adults in mind, offering flexible scheduling, local access, and practical application removes a significant barrier that allows these employees to continue serving students while advancing their credentials. In my 29 years in education as a teacher, a principal, a community college director, and now a superintendent, we've been talking about the same things for years with little to no movement within the state to tackle barriers that are real in rural communities like ours. Within the last 2 years, my district has had 8 employees attempting to gain licensure as teachers, and all but one of those students have enrolled in out-of-state programs. I truly believe our higher education system can serve better than can better serve those that need it right here at home. This is about strengthening the quality, stability, and cultural relevance of our rural workforce. When we invest in local talent, we build continuity for students and sustainability for our schools. In short, this program aligns directly with Oregon's goals of equity, access, and workforce development. It is practical, it's community-based, and it's a solution to a very real problem. I respectfully urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Davis. Jennifer Davis. Yes, please proceed.
I'm here. Thank you, Executive Director Cannon and members of the Commission for extending the public comment period today, which shows your commitment to open dialogue. I'm Jennifer Davis. I'm English faculty from Clackamas Community College, and I'm here to talk about a new topic, 2 things specifically, co-requisites and developmental education. At Clackamas, we are actively developing a co-requisite writing course to meet the mandated deadline of summer/fall 2027, a deadline that, to be frank, we will have trouble meeting given the complexity of developmental curriculum and placement systems that are required for co-requisites. However, my main concern is the continued uncertainty about state funding for developmental education. While we believe co-requisites can and will help some students, they will not work for all students. Some students need a slower pace in order to learn. Others may be working to overcome knowledge gaps that leave them too intimidated or overwhelmed to even register for a college level course. To ensure that Oregon's higher education system works for as many students as possible, we need a variety of tools and pathways to help students succeed. Creating co-requisites while simultaneously defunding developmental education does not do that. It limits us to one option, co-requisites, forcing all students into a one-size-fits-all model. Our current developmental writing courses at Clackamas have higher passing rates than the vast majority of co-requisite programs we've studied. But some of the students currently thriving in this developmental writing courses would likely be squeezed out of a one-size-fits-all co-requisite model, which would include returning students who haven't set foot in a classroom in 10 or 20 years, and immigrant or ESOL students who bring so much value to our state, but also need time to fully master English skills. Deep learning and true success take time that accelerated co-requisite programs do not provide, but that can be provided in 1 or 2 developmental courses. We believe that all students deserve both our time and our funding. Please allow us to maintain fully funded developmental courses as an option for students in addition to co-recs. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Adam Wickert.
I'm here. Thank you for your time. My name is Adam Wickert, and I teach English composition and GED courses at Clackamas Community College. I implore the members of the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to reconsider the idea of defunding developmental education at Oregon's community college. For nearly 10 years, I've been teaching the writing and reading courses at CCC. These classes are crucial for many of our students, especially our adult learners. While I appreciate this board's consideration of a co-requisite model for our students that need additional supports to be able to manage college writing classes, the model unfortunately does not address the necessary elements that will lead to success for our students. In our writing and reading development courses, we build reading and writing skills using proven research-based strategies. We shorten the pathway to graduation by employing a proven placement method. These courses serve our most vulnerable students. They build confidence in their writing voices. They forge connections with their classmates that last lifetimes. They gain access to writing experts that craft assignments that help them build a sense of belonging in their college and their community. Please do not defund developmental education courses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Rosevier.
Good morning, I'm here. Good morning, Chair Heyman and members of the commission, and thank you for giving us time to testify today. My name is Nicole Rosevier, and I'm a member of the English faculty at Clackamas Community College. I'm here to advocate for funding for pre-college level writing courses. These courses provide students with valuable time to build literacy skills, create a sense of belonging, and to shift their mindset around writing so they can go on to college level courses feeling confident they can succeed. While we understand that co-requisites can and will help some students, many students need more time to make these significant shifts in mindset. We have seen students benefit from the time spent strengthening their writing skills in our developmental reading and writing courses, and I want you to hear from these students in their own words from their end-of-term reflections why these courses are so important. One student wrote, "Over the course of this term, I have grown from a writer who relied on rigid instructions to one who understands that effective writing is about purpose and audience. This class not only strengthened my technical skills, but also changed the way I think about writing itself." Another wrote, "This term in Writing and Reading 98 has pushed me to grow in ways that I did not anticipate. Each assignment has revealed something new about my writing strengths and the areas I still need to develop. While I still struggle to write conclusions, I recognize that my own awareness is progress in itself. This class has given me a stronger foundation, and I'm more confident walking into my next English class knowing I have the tools to keep improving." And a third said, "Overall, this course changed not only my attitude toward reading and writing, but also my attitude toward myself. I started this course without confidence in my voice, and I'm finishing it with the understanding that my thoughts matter." I could share many more examples like these of students recognizing the benefit of developmental reading and writing classes. Please maintain funding for these crucial classes so that students may continue to learn at their own pace. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Lee Hancock. Lee Hancock. If you're online, you may unmute and turn your camera on. Jesse Harada Nance.
Hello, I'm here. Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission, for your time and consideration. My name is Dr. Jesse Harada Nance, and I'm an instructor of writing at Columbia Gorge Community College. I also have 17 years experience teaching college-level writing in Oregon. I'm here today to speak in support of Writing 115 and DevEd funding. I see firsthand how Writing 115 helps students build skill and confidence as they begin a return to higher education. The slower pace allows for deeper engagement with the content and results in a stronger command of the foundational skills students need to succeed in college-level courses. This is not possible to recreate in a co-requisite model. I met with some Writing 115 students and asked why they chose Writing 115 instead of taking 121 with a co-requisite lab. A couple of them mentioned that they were coming back to school after being away for a while, and they appreciated how the class allowed them to ease back into the rigors of college. One student even mentioned and gave me permission to share their experience from last term. They registered for college-level classes, including 121, and withdrew from them all before completing because they were so overwhelmed by the quick pace. They said their experience in 115 and Math 95 this term has helped them because the slower pace allows them to build skill and confidence. The students' experience is one that I see played out repeatedly in my classrooms. While the co-requisite model can help some, it doesn't serve many students because the lab does not slow down the pace or the demands of the parent class. I've seen what happens when students are placed in college-level classes before they're ready, and it's heartbreaking. They feel overwhelmed and frustrated because they have a hard time keeping up with the pace, even with the lab. For these students, Writing 115 and DevEd is a lifesaver. It helps them, in the words of one student, learn to college while also helping them practice skills and gain confidence in writing. Defunding Writing 115 and DevEd would further widen equity gaps and would disenfranchise many of our students. The student I mentioned above came back and thankfully had DevEd to support their return. I fear how many students we will lose without DevEd support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina Ontiveros. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Lee Hancock?
It is, and I'm really sorry. I'm not familiar with Teams, and I couldn't get unmuted when you first called on me.
Not to worry. Please proceed with your testimony now.
Thank you. My name is Lee Hancock, and I've been a writing instructor at Columbia Gorge Community College for over 2 decades. And my comments are going to echo a lot of my colleagues, but I think it's important that you hear from all of us. I fully understand that the state is anxious to get students through college and into the workforce, but eliminating DevEd courses like Writing 115 is not the best way to do that. And in fact, it's just the opposite. It limits the ability of vulnerable, struggling students to take the courses they want and need. Any of us who teach Writing 115 at a community college know that there are students who will not succeed if placed directly into Writing 121, no matter how many supports and labs we throw at them. We know it, our students know it, and you would know it if you came to a Writing 115 classroom in a college like ours. You would see students who struggle to write a clear sentence. You would see much less a paragraph. You would see students whose reading is limited to text and memes. These students don't lack intelligence, and they don't lack drive, and they don't lack dreams, but they do lack skills and confidence in basic reading, writing, and critical thinking, and often in language. Skills they can't magically acquire while they're trying to master more advanced topics. To give these students no choice but to take Writing 121 is not equity. It's insensitive, if not inhumane. To watch a student put forth full effort and still not pass because they're in over their heads, it's one of the hardest things we do. We saw this happen when Writing 90 went away, and we know there's a subset of students we no longer serve because we don't have an entry point for them. The same thing in larger numbers will happen if the state ceases to fund Writing 115. Data is tossed around a lot, but in reality, the data around eliminating DevEd is not conclusive. It has holes and misapplications, and researchers are now finding that slower paced developmental courses are more effective for many students. We need to keep Writing 115 funded. It's humane, it's good pedagogy, and in the long run, it's good economics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina Ontiveros.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the Commission. My name's Tina Ontiveros. I teach writing and literature at Columbia Gorge Community College and serve as the Vice President of the United Employees of CGCC. I'm also concerned today with defunding developmental education courses and the impacts on marginalized students. College-level math and writing move at a pace that leaves many students behind, even with the integration of co-rec labs. Eliminating DevEd courses harms our most vulnerable students. Yesterday, I taught a 200 level writing course and was reflecting on this meeting today and realized that I met many of the students in that class while teaching DevEd writing. And that includes English language learners, high school dropouts, students in recovery, students who are homeschooled. Each of these students was onboarded to college through DevEd courses, which provided them space and time to acclimate to the culture of college while also developing the skills they needed. And now they're succeeding in a 200 level class. I myself went to community college. I grew up below the poverty line, and my parents struggled with addiction and housing insecurity. I'm the first in my family to go to college, which I did while raising children and working. Our culture stigmatizes mistakes made by people in poverty, so I learned early to be quiet and to stay in my place. This kind of shame is how we exclude the poor from active citizenship. DevEd math was essential to my college journey. It helped me break through internalized shame and created space for me to learn by making mistakes. It gave me time to gain confidence and develop a sense of belonging. I was able to brag about my first A in a math class ever, and I went on to earn A's in every math class after. We know that our brains are wired to learn through mistakes. DevEd classes create spaces for students who have not had the privilege of discovery through mistakes and whose voices have been silenced in educational spaces. Now more than ever, we need folks from underserved communities in leadership roles to help shape our collective future. Defunding DevEd will exclude some very valuable voices and deny many poor and working class people access to higher education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jeremy Tribue.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners and Executive Director Cannon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jeremy Tribue. I am an English instructor and the chair of the English program at Chemeketa Community College, where I have taught developmental writing since 2003. Before that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer teaching ESOL. I'm here today to respectfully oppose the proposal to defund developmental courses at Oregon colleges and universities. Opposition shared unanimously by all of my colleagues at Chemeketa. However well-intentioned, the reality is that it will do tremendous harm to the students who need these courses and the institutions that offer them. My family and I were all developmental writing and math students in college. I have dedicated my professional life to serving these students. No one is more devoted to their success. I am not against innovation or reform. I was the English lead in Chemeketa's early design and adoption of multiple measures placement and co-requisite writing and math classes, among many other examples. However, I am absolutely against this inflexible, absolute approach to reform. We must retain the option to serve these students with developmental classes because otherwise they simply will not be served. There is not another pathway that leads to their eventual success. Co-requisites will work for many students, but not for all. The body of research that may be driving this proposal is methodologically unsound in many ways, as I have detailed in written testimony. Additionally, its applicability to Oregon is questionable at best, as we have one of the least successful K-12 systems in this country, and the studied colleges are all on semesters, not quarters. For many reasons I have also detailed in written testimony, adult basic education is not a replacement for developmental college courses. In conclusion, please slow down. Writing faculty want to work with you to improve chances of our vulnerable students' success. Join us as a partner in this important work of thoughtfully reforming the educational system rather than simply demolishing chunks of it. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Gina Sabati.
Good morning. Apologies, my camera turn on button disappeared a few minutes ago, so I'll just be a voice in your room. But my name is Gina Zabadi, and I'm the writing program coordinator at Lane Community College, and I'm also the current chair of the Oregon Writing and English Advisory Committee. And I'm here to speak today in support of continued funding for flexible, diverse, locally adaptive models for developmental education. in my role as the chair of the OEAC, you have heard from many of my colleagues and will not be surprised to hear that I have been a part of a lot of conversations among higher ed English and writing folks about the importance of continuing to support developmental education and our concerns around the students that are currently receiving that support. I had the opportunity earlier this week to be working with high school teachers from around Lane County at our annual articulation meeting. These are teachers who teach classes for college credit in their high schools. And when I mentioned the potential for losing funding for developmental education courses, I was surprised to hear that those teachers too had deep concerns. While we all work in support of opening pathways for students who are well prepared for college to have those opportunities, we were all equally concerned about ensuring that students who may have faced challenges or been less well served by our systems continue to have flexible options that meet their needs. And so as we consider moving forward, I want to encourage folks to please keep in mind that all of you have what you've all heard from my colleagues, that we have programs that meet a lot of student needs in a lot of different ways, and fewer options is not what we feel like is going to continue to meet those needs. I want to thank you for your time today, and I hope the rest of your meeting goes smoothly.
Thank you.
Melanie Landon Hayes. And I will note there's also written testimony 4.0E associated with this testimony.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you all today. Sorry, I have this pulled up and it went away. Chair Hammond, Director Cannon, and the commissioners, thank you for having me. For the record, my name is Dr. Melanie Landon Hayes, and I'm testifying on behalf of Western Oregon University. I have been faculty in our teacher education licensure programs for the last 13 years and was recently appointed as the acting dean of the College of Education just last week. So I'm jumping in on all of this. I also serve on the school board for the Central School District and stay deeply connected to local schools. I want to begin by commending our community college partners, Columbia Gorge, Chemeketa, Linn-Benton, the Rogue, and Treasure Valley. The retention challenges in rural K-12 schools are very real, and we deeply value the community college's commitment to advocating for their local districts. With that said, WU opposes the proposal to authorize Bachelor of Applied Science degrees in education at community colleges because of the ongoing investment we have in being a partner to solve these issues together, instead of creating a deeper competition. We believe that to truly solve this problem, we must address its root causes rather than duplicate state resources. The HECC staff report notes that community college transfer patterns and need refinement. In my most recent role as the General Education Director at WU, I can tell you that we have actively listened to that feedback, and we are already addressing these challenges and structural and institutional changes that are tangible and actively in process. We recently overhauled our education programs to create seamless transfer pathways and are excited to partner with the community colleges to make this available to them. Previously, education prerequisites were tightly embedded, are double dipped within our gen ed pathways. This unintentionally penalized transfer students and late deciders, forcing them to add an extra year or two to their degree just to finish prerequisites they missed in the traditional gen ed program. We recognized that barrier and we eliminated it. We took those prerequisites out of gen ed, revamped our systems to accept as many community college courses as possible. Beginning next school year, students transferring into WU from community colleges do not lose credits. They do not waste money, and they are not delayed. If our public universities are actively and successfully removing the barriers to transfer, then building a brand new parallel 4-year degree infrastructure at community colleges is not the most responsible use of state resources. And we urge you to keep working with us because we want to. Thank you.
Ray H. Newman.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, Director Cannon, Chair Hammond, and Vice Chair Simnett, and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Dr. Ray Newman, Dean of College of Education at Eastern Oregon University, and I'm here to express my concern about the proposal to allow community colleges to offer Bachelor of Applied Science degrees in education that lead to licensure in Oregon. Testimony provided to the Commission raised valid concerns regarding access, affordability, workforce shortages, and innovation. However, Oregon's higher education system is not absent in these areas. In many ways, it's already aligned to address them. Across our public universities, there are more than 115 approved pathways to teacher licensure. This includes BA, BS, postbac, and MAT programs, and with over a third of them delivered off campus, and all with available capacity. Institutions have intentionally built flexible models, online, hybrid, evening, and community-based, to serve working adults and place-bound students. Oregon State's fully online program and EOU's hybrid program are examples of this system-level responsiveness. In terms of transfer and affordability, our institutions are already aligned through the major transfer maps and articulated pathways with community colleges. And in fact, both community colleges and public four-year institutions just revised and recommitted to the major transfer maps. These are not theoretical, they are operational structures designed to reduce credit loss and streamline competition or completion for Oregon students. We've heard concerns about rural access and grow your own models. Universities like EOU, WOU, SOU, and PSU have built high access, regionally responsive programs, including bilingual pathways and partnerships with local districts. These programs are specifically designed to recruit, prepare, and retain educators within their home communities. Oregon does not lack pathways. The systems already offer both breadth and available capacity. The real challenge is increasing participation in those pathways by expanding financial support for aspiring and current educators and by addressing the structural and perceptual barriers that discourage entry into the persistence in the profession. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Howard.
Chair Heyman, Commissioners, and Executive Director Cannon, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm Jessica Howard, the president of Chemeketa Community College, and I'm speaking in support of the BAS in Education degree. Much public comment about this proposed degree has come before the commission this year, and I'd like to make a few salient points on behalf of myself and Dr. Randy Weber, the president of Road Community College. This program is designed explicitly for working adults to be able to work and go to college, and I'm speaking specifically of classified and provisional teachers already working in K-12 classrooms across Oregon. This model is exactly what out-of-state providers like Grand Canyon University and Western Governors University offer, and our proposal will keep those dollars in-state and those approaches local. It is noteworthy that graduates of these bachelor's degrees face no issue in enrolling in education master's programs in our state. Concerning the base degree, a number of private Oregon universities have already approached us in the consortium to pursue transfer articulations into their master's degree programs. They, like us, are awaiting your approval. Number two, meeting local workforce needs is what this proposal is all about. This degree was conceived in direct response to our K-12 partners who came to us with a pressing teacher shortage without a solution. I ask you to please consider those parts of the state with only one community college and one university. Those regions risk workforce shortage when the local university might not be able to prioritize a specific program, and the local college is not allowed to address the industry need. Industry and employees lose in that scenario. And finally, delaying the approval of this proposed degree can carry significant impact for two of the colleges in the consortium. Without a decision today, Rogue and Columbia Gorge will not be able to offer the degree by fall of 2027. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Play recorded oral testimony from Angelica Garcia.
Chair and Commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Angelica. I am a first-generation college student, a bilingual student, and a former education major at Chemeketa Community College. I transferred this fall to Western Oregon University to complete my teaching degree. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue my education, and I'm here to share what this transition has been like for me. At Chemeketa, I didn't feel just like a student. I feel like I belong. Faculty, advisors, and staff knew me, checked on me, and understood my background. Many of them spoke my language, literally and culturally. As a first-generation student, that matters so much. Leaving Chemeketa, I feel like leaving part of my family behind, a family that had helped me to learn English as my second language and how to navigate college in the first place. Transferring to a university means starting over. I had to learn an entire new system, new advising, new technology, and new expectations without the same level of guidance. As a bilingual student and the first in my family to attend college, it was overwhelming to figure out everything on my own, especially when I didn't always know who to ask or what questions to ask. I was feeling lost and considering quitting the school because it was hard, but I continued thanks to the resilience that I developed at my first home, Chemeketa. and because I didn't want to disappoint those who believe in me. That transfer process also took longer than I expected. When I transferred, my costs increased immediately. Tuition, fees, books, transportation, living expenses all went up at once. As a first generation student, I helped support my family. So adding these costs has a real impact in our household and added more stress for my family and myself. University attendance has also reduced my flexibility. I had to quit one of my jobs and find another in non-convenient hours because now I have less time with my family, with my daughters and my husband. Balancing school, work, and family responsibilities has become much harder. This is why the BAS degree is so important to students like me. A bachelor degree offered to a community college will allow first generation and bilingual students to stay in the communities where we feel supported, understood, and safe. It will reduce costs, preserve flexibility, and allow us to complete our degrees without unnecessary barriers. I am sharing my story today because of what I experienced during this transition. While I am committed to succeed at Western Oregon University, I hope that my testimony helps create better options for future community college students, so their path to becoming educators is more accessible than mine was. Thank you for listening and for considering the voice of first generation and bilingual students.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next up, during recorded oral testimony from Ariana Morales.
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I'm both a student at Chemeketa and an employee in the Woodburn School District. Every day I see the impact of Oregon's teacher shortage. In my school, many classrooms are led by substitutes or teachers on emergency licenses, and students don't always get the consistency they deserve. I'm working toward becoming a licensed teacher, but honestly, the biggest challenge is balancing school with real life. I can't afford to quit my job to attend a class somewhere else. My income supports my family. On top of that, tuition, commuting, or relocating just isn't realistic. And the current transfer options don't give me the flexibility I need to stay in my community and serve the students I'm currently serving. That's why the Bachelor's of Applied Science in Education, BASE, is so important. The program would allow students like me to finish a teaching degree right here at our community college, while continuing to work in local schools with local and flexible courses. It creates a pathway for people who are already committed to their communities and ready to step into teaching roles. If BASE is approved, we could start filling these open positions with qualified, licensed teachers who already live and work here. That means more stability for students and stronger schools overall. So I'm asking you to please support programs like BASE. It's not just about degrees. It's about investing in people who are ready to teach and giving us the chance to stay, grow, and serve our community. Thank you for your time and for supporting a pathway that helps us grow our own educators.
Thank you.
One more, Chair. Jennifer Mackley, share here.
While our district benefits from multiple community and university partnerships, I firmly believe we need a menu of pathways that allow Lebanon residents, current staff members, and other community members to obtain a teaching license. Traditional models alone are not meeting the needs of our working professionals, many of whom simply cannot step away from their jobs or families to pursue a full-time program. That is why I stand firmly in support of the BASE program, Bachelor of Applied Science in Education. The BASE program is more than an initiative. It is an essential pathway that opens doors for future educators, supports our schools, and strengthens our community. Designed with communities like Lebanon in mind, BASE provides students and adults with structured, high-quality opportunities to explore education as a career, gain real classroom experience, and receive mentorship from seasoned professionals right here in our region. The program strengthens the pipeline by identifying talent early, often individuals who already have a passion for serving young people. Many are currently working in our schools, contributing to our community, and making a difference every day. BASE gives them a structured path forward, real-world experience, and a clear sense of purpose. It also broadens access for individuals who may not have previously seen themselves as teachers, first-generation college students, career changers, or those unsure of their next step. Most importantly, the BASE program aligns with our district's belief that every student deserves a highly qualified, well-prepared, and inspired teacher. When we invest in programs like BASE, we are not simply filling vacancies. We are building a sustainable, homegrown workforce and strengthening the future of education in Lebanon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
That concludes our oral testimony. I will draw the commission's attention to items 4.0A through J, which are submitted as written testimony. Not all of these are yet included in your packet because I received some of them while the oral testimony was proceeding. So I will be sending a follow-up email after the meeting.
Thank you so much, Guthrie. And I want to thank all of those who provided testimony today. It's, I think it reflects the importance of kinds of decisions that we're trying to address right now, not just basic, but developmental ed and this, study of the secondary system. Also, the role of our private universities. It's just great to see all of the interest in these issues. So I thank all of you. It's an important part of our work. Now, we're going to move on. We have a consent agenda. So it's item 5. And has a lot of items. If it is possible, we can take a single action on all of them at the same time. But I will ask first if anyone needs to remove an item from the consent agenda. Yes, Commissioner Colvin.
I would like to move to remove consent item 5.4 from the consent agenda.
5.4?
Yes, I'd like to further discuss this item.
Okay. The proper procedure to address that first or address it. We can do this as way.
I don't know, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think that a single commissioner making a request to remove the item from the consent agenda is sufficient to remove the item from the consent agenda. So I think you can consider that done and proceed now with the consent agenda.
Okay, any other concerns? Could I entertain a motion on approving the consent agenda with the omission of item 5.4?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mifflin. Thank you, Mr. Simnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have approved the consent agenda. I'll come back to item 5.4. Commissioner Coker.
Yes, thank you, Chair Heyman, Director Cannon. The primary issue that I have with 5.4 is not necessarily an issue with the item in and of itself, but rather with the known issue with artificial intelligence current applications, where it further perpetuates biases and inequities that are societally present. And that the program does acknowledge this in the material submitted in the equity and inclusion section, but does not include a course in the actual program to help students learn more about these inherent biases within artificial intelligence frameworks and how to mitigate them in their future employment. So I would like to get more information on how PSU plans to address that specific issue and potentially with a course or with further information on courses in the major pathway that fulfill that requirement and then come back to us when that's further fleshed out.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions in regards to that? Is it possible to get, if necessary, staff input on perhaps that issue has already been addressed or?
It is possible, we're not necessarily prepared for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'd be happy to follow up though.
Thank you.
Yeah, considering that item is specifically addressed in the equity and inclusion section, but it's not specifically addressed in any of the courses listed. I would like to know if that's addressed in the core curriculum for the university that is not in the major pathway, or if there's any specific courses that can be included in the major pathway to help fulfill that requirement with the specificity pertaining to artificial intelligence that is needed.
Okay. Could I entertain a motion to postpone this?
Yeah, I don't think you need it. I mean, I think you can simply choose not to receive a motion, or, you know, we shall proceed without a motion.
We shall wait for additional information and proceed. Thank you for that. We have an action item, 6.0. Donna Welling will be addressing this. It's just a reminder, this was on our previous agenda and it had been, decision on this had been postponed for today. So thank you.
Good morning, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simmet, and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Donna Welling. I'm the Director of the Office of Community Colleges and Workforce Development here. As the Chair referenced, during the February 2026 Commission meeting, the program was withdrawn from the consent agenda and questions were raised regarding the proposal, primarily regarding the market need and the overall review process. The docket item that's before you has been prepared to further provide information regarding the review and consideration of this item. Just for an overview, a certificate of completion is 45 to 60 credits and is designed to provide specialized collegiate level learning with a clear job entry point and must meet all higher education coordinating commission standards, elements, and assurances. Staff received PCC's programs application and upon review, identified that PCC did submit all required documents along with supporting materials. Components reviewed by the staff included the career and technical education approval standards. PCC did in fact provide comprehensive narrative responses addressing need, collaboration, alignment, design, and capacity. Staff reviewed each narrative and supporting evidence and determined that the responses sufficiently addressed the guiding elements and questions for all 5 standards. We also reviewed the curriculum, which included a course list. We included labor market information, which included information regarding entrepreneurship. And one thing I wanted to point out, because there was such an interest in this last time, is that they did include a U.S. Department of Treasury report from 2024 that cited small businesses are creating more than 70% of the net new jobs since 2019. That is expected to increase. We are averaging, and in the U.S. averaged over 400,000 new business applications per month in 2024, and entrepreneurship is becoming more and more diverse. Finally, we reviewed the advisory board information, which included representation from business and industry, college staff, and other subject matter experts. And although not a required element for the review, staff also noted that the certificate as it is designed also likely needs federal financial aid eligibility. In conclusion, HECC staff conducted a comprehensive review and found that the labor market information, program summary, assurances, outcomes, advisory committee information, and narrative responses to the required standards demonstrate appropriate rigor, clarity, and effectiveness. And as such, HECC staff are recommending the adoption of the Portland Community College CC1 in entrepreneurship and small business development. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Donna. Does anyone have questions for Donna? Or if not, we'd entertain a motion to approve. Yes.
I'd just like to make a quick statement, really quick. I know that with the governor's report earlier, that Oregon is a less competitive climate to attract businesses from out of state and out of country. And some of our strongest growth has come from homegrown businesses. So I think that this is a good investment in Oregon's future and the businesses that we can grow here to help serve the state. So I'm happy to move to approve this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Deborah seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
We have approved item 6.0. Thank you so much, and thank you, Donna, for the additional information.
You're welcome.
We now move on to action item 7.0. I do remind you, this is an action item, okay? This is with regards to the Bachelor of Applied Science and Education, BAS. We received considerable testimony, both written and oral, on this topic. And I want to describe a little bit about how I hope this conversation goes. I think it's important for us to have an open and candid conversation about both our supports and our concerns. I am, for variety of reasons, interested in achieving a decision today. And if that is possible, I'm certainly going to be the first one cheering. But at some point, if I feel like we're just simply stalled in this conversation, I will probably ask for some sort of survey of where you are at. And if we are not close to making a decision, I will probably ask to defer that. And I want you to understand the concern with regards to that, because the timing on these programs for two institutions requiring accreditation approval, that will create a considerable hardship for that. So I want you, it's not that we can just simply postpone it without impact, but I want to make sure we understand the issues and can find something close to an agreed position on how to proceed with this action item. So with that, Donna, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. So this presentation and likely discussion is about the BAS consortium proposal. Your docket items or your docket materials contain an overview of the process. There are summaries of comments received both in favor and in opposition. Those are what have been collected up to this morning. We've also included what we hope to be a comprehensive list of current offerings at four-year institutions. To help you prepare for your consideration, I'd like to walk you through some high-level points. Guthrie, can you share screen for me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to look sideways, I think. Make sure I know what screen we're on.
This is 7.0F. Okay.
Yes. Please hold for technology issues.
Okay, here we go.
Just like that magic. Okay, we can go ahead and move to the next slide. So prior to the creation of the consortium, you've heard that superintendents and principals from around Oregon were contacting the community colleges asking if they would consider offering a bachelor's degree in education to help alleviate what was characterized as a severe shortage of qualified teachers in rural communities and in ESL and special education. These districts were having to hire long-term substitute teachers, emergency certified teachers, and teachers on restricted licenses. They needed certified teachers who were interested in working in rural areas for long-term stability in their schools. They also identified that there were education professionals, aides, clerical staff, and paraprofessionals working in the schools who would like to be teachers but weren't able to go to university because they had jobs they couldn't afford to give up,
homes, children, spouses, adult responsibilities that kept them from accessing or attending university programs. Next slide, please. In response to the growing concern, in January of last year, 5 colleges, Columbia Gorge, Chemeketa, Linn-Benton, Rogue, and Treasure Valley, formed the consortium and began phase 1 by developing a statement of need and establishing governance structures. By May 2025, all colleges had submitted their statement of need in which staff identified some incomplete responses in actually 4 of the submissions. Colleges were instructed to revise, they submitted, and by June of 2025, all 5 statements of needs, also known as SUNs, were approved and placed on the June Commission agenda, notifying the Commission of the approvals and triggering the 90-day public and university review period. During the summer of 2025, university partners shared concerns with HECC leadership about potential duplication, program quality, and the use of limited state resources. And I think you've heard that expressed again a little bit today. In response, we convened meetings that brought together consortium representatives, university teacher education leaders, and staff. These meetings led to constructive collaboration, including 2 university representatives joining the BAS Advisory Committee, and the consortium was invited to participate in the Oregon Association of Colleges for Teacher Education, which had primarily previously only included 4-year institutions. Next slide, please. In October, colleges prepared and submitted notices of application. Staff reviewed the submission and all 5 of those notices were approved. And the consortium, and during that time, the consortium also formally accepted the invitation to join OACTE. In December of 2025, Commission received questions and both written and verbal public testimony, some in support and some of opposed, which led to leading to the approval timeline being moved to today. In January 2026, all 5 colleges submitted their program applications. The review team reviewed them, approved all 5 applications with no revisions required, and they were placed on today's commission docket for your consideration. Next slide, please. Like our other certificates and degrees at community colleges, all community college applied baccalaureate programs must meet HECC's 5 program approval standards and demonstrate clear workforce need. For the phase 1 and phase 2 submissions, colleges used standard rubrics applied consistently across all of the proposals to develop their materials, and staff used those same rubrics to review submissions for completeness and alignment with the approval standards. If needed, submissions were returned and comments, and colleges had about 1 week to revise them, as I indicated. Next slide, please. So to determine need, BAS used multiple data sources: Oregon Employment Department quality info, reports, surveys of principals and superintendents in regional school districts, surveys of current community college students, and you will and also obtain letters of support from 15 school districts and organizations across the 5 regions. The consensus from K-12 leaders and prospective students was a strong interest in community college based teacher programs. The need, as has been discussed earlier, is especially acute in rural and remote areas where districts struggle to recruit and retain qualified teachers. Existing university programs do indeed help to meet some of this need, but some often require relocation for coursework and student teaching. We also found that, unfortunately, transfer rates from community colleges to university teacher prep programs are lower than we'd like, and completion rates are even lower. Often because, as we found, working adults cannot leave their jobs, relocate, or disrupt family responsibilities. Next slide, please. Program development included extensive engagement with multiple groups. This helped them understand the needs of working adults and rural communities. They surveyed school district personnel, students, and prospective students, which provided additional insights into barriers and program design preferences. The consortium worked closely with regulatory and accrediting bodies to ensure students receive the instruction needed for licensure and teaching careers. They received guidance from the Teachers Standards Practices Commission, also known as TSPC, the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities, the accrediting body, and the National Community College Baccalaureate Association. They also convened an active advisory committee with members representing schools and districts from each of the regions. Collaboration with university partners evolved throughout the entire process. During meetings convened by the HECC, consortium colleges and four-year institutions engaged in focused discussions about program alignment and gaps. And this led to a recognition that existing university programs do not fully meet the needs of place-bound adult learners. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On this,
Oh, sorry.
thank you, Donna, for your presentation here. I am wondering in the collaboration piece and the research piece, if looking at best practices and places where this program is working, like in Washington, for example, can you speak to a little bit to that?
Yeah, so the BAS Consortium has done quite a bit of looking at how these community college bachelors of applied science degrees work in other states. And Washington is a very good example of how it can be successful at the community college level, and with a strong four-year partnership, it creates pathways for a master's degree. And I think Executive Director Abby Lee from Oregon Community College Association referenced some of that. If you'd like additional in-depth information, I'd be happy to get that to you, but it was part of the overall looking at how to design the model.
Thank you.
Okay. The BAS curriculum is aligned with the Oregon teachers' licensure requirements through careful mapping to teacher standards and practices commission requirements, and guided by the national benchmarks from the Interstate Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium and the Association for Advancing Quality and Educator Preparation. The program also meets industry standards for special education and English as a second language endorsements. BAS builds on the transfer pathways and also pathways from high school, which helps further strengthen access to the program and through the program. The program supports Oregon's Grow Your Own, as you've heard, by incorporating place-based practicum experiences where students complete clinical placements in their local schools, often in their current workplaces. This approach, combined with paid clinical experiences where possible and flexible delivery options, including evening, hybrid, and work-based learning formats, allow working adults to advance without leaving their jobs. By focusing on place-bound students already embedded in rural communities, BAS prepares educators where they are most needed and leads to improved retention. Next slide. So this slide highlights the program design, which includes comprehensive upper division coursework. Clinical experiences follow a progressive model. Students begin with guided observations and move through increasing levels of classroom engagement. Part-time practicum experiences in local schools allow students to increase teaching responsibilities under mentor guidance. Students must demonstrate professional competencies aligned with the state and national standards through performance-based assessments, and each college provides wraparound services tailored to BAS students, including dedicated advising and career development support to help students navigate the program. Next slide, please. The BAS degree strengthens existing college and district systems without creating undue strain on programs or budgets. It builds on established pathways, and it leverages current faculty expertise, facilities, and community partnerships. Costs are further reduced through participation in a 5-college consortium that shares development and implementation expenses. To begin with, the program targets a 30-to-1 student to faculty ratio, which actually equates to 6 students at each of the 5 colleges, making a total of 30 statewide. This scale aligns with current program capacity with identified rural workforce needs. Next slide, please. So something that's come up during the overall conversation of the last several months is recent layoffs in some of the larger school districts. And so that has raised some understandable questions about the overall need for additional teacher prep and capacity. The key distinction in this is that urban areas tend to experience cyclic staffing changes tied to budget conditions, while many rural regions continue to face persistent long-term shortages. Urban districts will likely recover as budgets improve, but rural districts face ongoing challenges regardless of budget cycles. Statewide data continue to show shortages in special education and English as a second language, and many rural districts rely on long-term substitutes or underprepared teachers to fill those classrooms. Rural school districts need to replace teachers on temporary or restricted licenses, and they actually have positions that haven't been filled in years. It's worth noting that BAS won't be graduating its first teachers for 3 more years. And BAS colleges will be scaled with identified rural workforce needs. Next slide, please. So I won't read the quote to you, but the quote is from the Grants Pass Tribune in July of last year, and it's representative of conditions in the rural and remote district areas across each of the service areas served by the BAS consortium colleges. Rural colleges bear a disproportionate burden when it comes to teacher shortage, or rural communities bear a disproportionate burden when it comes to teacher shortages, and the pattern shows no signs of easing. Next slide, please. Like in nursing, there's a maldistribution of educators. Teachers are unevenly distributed across the state. In rural areas, there are shortages at all levels and in all subject areas, whether or not there is a budget involved. When teachers lose their positions, for instance, here in the Willamette Valley, and take jobs out in rural areas, they often return when positions open up in the more urban areas, which contributes to the ongoing instability in rural schools. By focusing on workplace-bound adults in these communities who may already be working in their local schools, BAS can help stabilize the rural teaching workforce with teachers who are established in their communities. Next slide, please. So there are several teacher preparation program models in Oregon's university. Some of these programs offer more than one feature that support working adults and place-bound students. Programs designed for adult learners with evening and weekend courses, distance learning options, and other design models. An inventory of those programs and what they offer is included in your docket materials. While these programs exist and generally do have some capacity, they do not consistently meet the needs of place-bound students, working adults, and rural communities. And few university programs specialize in serving the specific needs of place-bound adults who want to and need to keep working. BAS integrates all of these features into a single program and specializes in rural schools. The program offers, as I mentioned, endorsements in special education and ESL. And a major differentiator is that students can complete their student teaching in their own communities where placements may be available as paid positions, which significantly reduces the financial barrier and strengthens the educator workforce. And I think that's the end of the slide presentation. Yep. And so taken together, The approval process, taken together with the approval process to date, the alignment with the 5 programs in the approval standards, the analysis of the existing university landscape, persistent workforce gaps, and feedback received from through public comment indicate a clear and ongoing need for the consortium. The consortium is committed to reviewing the enrollment and student outcomes being achieved by this innovative model. As part of the ongoing assessment of the need, the BAS consortium has agreed to work with HECC staff to review data and make recommendations for any programmatic changes approximately 3 years after the start of the first cohort. This should allow a preliminary baseline of data for continuous program improvement and continued work in alignment and strengthening partnerships with already existing programs. In addition, the BAS consortium agrees to cap enrollment in the program to no more than 50 students, regardless of need, per cohort statewide for the first 3 years. And as a result of what has been shared, the HECC staff recommends the approval of the following programs: Columbia Gorge Community College, Chemeketa Community College, Linn-Benton Community College, Rogue Community College, and Treasure Valley Community College Education Bachelors of Applied Science and Education. In addition, it is recommended that staff continue to participate in the BAS consortium meetings and actively engage in the ongoing assessment as outlined previously. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Donna, thank you so much for your presentation. I want to especially thank you and your staff for thoroughness with which you've taken look at this program and now presented it to us. And we will now open this up for conversation, and I'm not sure whose hand I saw first. I think I got that problem too.
Well, and thank you, Chair Heyman, and thank you, Donna, for a very comprehensive report. I had a question something that well, first of all, I very much understand there is a clear need for something for a program. I feel the report was very clear on that and all in the testimony that we have heard. What I'm still not fully understanding is why there hasn't been some kind of agreement or partnership reached with the 4 years. And I heard that there was a mention of a strong 4-year partnership in Washington, and this idea that students might go on to Washington instead of in Oregon for graduate school. That suggests to me that there's like quite a bit of tension between the community colleges and the universities. And so can you talk a little bit more about what the difficulties have been in reaching an agreement, and if there is a path forward for the two groups to come together to have some kind of partnership in this process?
Yeah, I thank you for the question, Vice Chair Senate. The truth of the matter is that it's an ongoing conversation. When we did the first convening of both public and private 4-year institutions who combine education programs and the BAS consortium, it became very apparent during that meeting that there is a desire to continue to strengthen partnerships. And there are pockets of amazing partnerships happening within the state, but it's still not enough to feed the need. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in shoring up those pathways and those partnerships. Part of some of what I think is some of the great outcomes of this, what I'll call a spirited conversation that's lasted several months, is that we do have a couple of universities who have joined the advisory group for the BAS consortium, and we have BAS consortium members now attending and participating in the OACTE, which was the 4-year university piece. And that is a completely new development. And both groups are committed to strengthening and smoothing out those pathways and partnerships, recognizing that a one-size-fits-all for these rural students is not going to work.
Thank you. I'm going to go in order. I'm going to start with Commissioner Devlin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, can I make a request of Ben? and then I'll have a couple of questions from most of them. Ben, not for purposes of making a decision today, but can we get like a one-pager background on the, what was the proper terminology for this? The Bachelor of Applied Science and the legislative history of that and what their intention was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ms. Lovell, I feel like this process, I can't change the process because obviously the process has been put in place. But it seems like the commission itself comes in at the very end of this process. And I don't know to what degree all the requirements of the process are spelled out in legislation and what portion of it has been created by administrative rule. But I do have a couple of questions. One, for these programs, what is your understanding of how they intend to offer the upper division credits that a student might require requirements? And I'll state specifically, and perhaps too specifically, my concern. At a time when our federal agencies actually enforce statutes, Grand Canyon University was under a lot of scrutiny by the U.S. Department of Education and the Federal Trade Commission. It is also ranked very low in terms of universities, even though maybe perhaps has some questions. But I have some concerns. Most of the upper division is plan the utilizing that university. That's very low graduation rates and a whole bunch of issues. I don't have as many concerns about Western Oregon governments, but I still also cognizant of the fact that while I might have concern, I have to make decisions on the basis of what the requirements are in those statutes and in our regulations. I'm also very cognizant, as was stated here, that all of our established teacher education programs at our seven public universities are opposed to this. And at the same time, I'm quite aware that the community colleges involved have followed to perhaps the letter all the process that we put in place to gain this approval. And your judgment, I'm not questioning your judgment, have met all those requirements. How are they planning to get their upper division credits? That's my biggest question.
So I want to be clear that when it comes to the BAS consortium and the four-year degree that's being offered, that is being proposed to be offered, will be delivered by Oregon's 5 community colleges. It will not be reliant on a third party such as Grand Canyon or Western Governors. And those courses will cover things like child development, pedagogy, literacy, math, science, social, in those core areas, how to be culturally responsive in your instructional practices, etc. Those pieces in their upper division level coursework will be delivered by Oregon's institutions.
Can I just jump in on the process sort of question that Commissioner Devlin raised? It's been the longstanding practice of the commission in program approval, even predating applied baccalaureate opportunities for community colleges, that the commission would receive from staff a recommendation that reflects whether or not the proposing college or university has met the standards that are established by the commission in Oregon Administrative Rule. For community colleges, that's OAR 589-006-0110100. And that's where the commission, in adopting the rule, said, here's what you need to meet in order to be approved as a program in Oregon. And we will trust the staff to conduct an analysis and then bring forward a recommendation on whether or not you have met those standards. That is the process, the longstanding process that we follow. An issue like this, rare but occasional, where there's a considerable disagreement amongst the Oregon higher education community about whether the the proposal should move forward really tests that. And the sort of validity of that process to meet the moment, right? Because we, as you've heard from Donna, we have done exactly what you told us to do in adopting this rule. We have evaluated these programs against the standards. We have concluded that they meet the standards. We are recommending approval. And you have a very difficult decision to make, and it's understandable that you would wonder as a commission, gosh, it's challenging to come in here at the last stage and be asked to make a yes, no decision. This is, however, the process that the commission has set in motion going back over a decade and using Oregon administrative rule to guide. Got it.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Yamasaki, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, but here's the headers up first, if she go. Oh, okay, I'll go.
We're gonna get, I'm trying to be efficient. Because I'm trying to get everybody's voice in here.
Okay, I'll go.
I'm gonna do it.
So I guess that I don't question the need. I guess I'm questioning the timing of the execution to address the need. And I hear words like preservation versus innovation, reform. There's a sense of, and I would agree, there's a sense of contentiousness versus cooperation in this whole process. And I am wondering, because as I've sat here over the last couple of months, there really is a blending and blurring of lines in the higher ed sector in our state. And I give examples of dual enrollment, right? I think of examples of four-year programs doing short-term programs all of a sudden. Community colleges wanting to do bachelor's programs. And I also hear words like pausing, slow down. And I am wondering whether HB 4124 will give us the opportunity to kind of flush this more out. I guess I was surprised when I did the research that there are over 24 states that are offering bachelor's of applied science degrees, over 200 community colleges offering over 767 bachelor's of applied science degrees. And it's not only Washington, it's Illinois, it's Iowa. So I'm not sure we're so innovative. I guess that's the other thing. And so therefore, I'm conflicted about not the need, but about the timing of the execution, especially when we have House Bill 4124 looming over us, and its execution is required to happen really rapidly. And so I wonder about us pausing and slowing down, especially with the sense of contentiousness versus cooperation.
Thank you. Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the slowing down, I do not disagree with any of the rationale behind. I come from rural. I understand the teacher shortage more than a lot of people in this room. And I'm not even opposed necessarily to a bachelor's of BAS. I think it eliminates a lot of barriers for marginalized communities, and that's exactly who we want in the teaching professions. My concern, though, with where it is at this point is that I feel like people from marginalized communities are going to be guided into this degree pathway. And then a bachelor's degree in education is not a living wage. You have to get a master's degree if you want a living wage, and you have to get a master's degree if you're going to go into leadership, which I feel like people from marginalized communities need to be in leadership positions. And then asking them to go to a private institution is very expensive after, and asking them to go to the two, the governors, the other two that we keep talking about. I can tell you from in the education system that someone who goes to that education and is in a job interview up against someone who went to an Oregon institution, they're at a disadvantage getting that job. So, if we're asking them to go into leadership, getting their degrees from those institutions, that's concerning to me. And this also kind of brings up a bigger question for me too, because I know that is our process for coming to the commission with degree pathways. And I'm seeing a lot of BASs coming through from both 4-year and 2-year. And it concerns me when with reporting, there's so much in there and it is very good information. I think it's very thorough, but we're not getting what is the entry wage of that bachelor's? What would be a pathway? Like, are there pathways to master's through all of these BASs? And then do you need that for upward growth within those industries? Because I really do not want to see people coming in at entry level and stuck there. That's very concerning to me.
I'd like to address that. That is part of the importance of having the 2 universities on the BASE consortium and BASE consortium on the OACTE, because this program, BASE, is not designed and isn't going to be appropriate for those students that you just talked about. Those students should be in those pipelines and in partnerships that are already existing, and those need to be shored up and more robust. And both groups that I've been in contact with in that space agree and are actively working to do a better job.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I also agree that there's a need. Experience isn't conducive to, moving, uprooting their families and moving to a 4-year area to do their practicum, et cetera. I also have concerns about feeding our students who would have the BAS into private universities out of state. I'm not interested in that at all. It seems like to me that the crux of the conflict between 4 years and the community colleges is a perception that we're scrambling, reality that we're scrambling for resources at the state level, and that by conferring a degree program onto the community colleges, that is somehow going to reduce funding towards our 4-year schools who are already incredibly budget constrained, quite stressed about student enrollment. And so I haven't heard a lot about what that fund sent us to pretty thoroughly, but I don't know what that kind of resource allocation looks like. So I hear the concerns of the 4-year universities on that very practical level about funding, but the need seems like it needs to be addressed. So I'm leaning towards addressing that need.
So because the way this is designed, it is to start out at 30 students statewide. That is a total of 6 students per institution in a region, which I would say probably isn't a significant impact on the university side of things. I don't think it would make a break. That's my personal opinion.
Do you think that the community colleges would then receive more? I mean, they would get tuition funding, but would they receive more state dollars because of this?
Yeah, that just to, because that is a simple answer, yes, that there is no, the state's funding decisions for community colleges and universities are made independently of each other and of slight enrollment shifts, right? So the concern, I think, that the universities have expressed as it relates or implied as it relates to finance is the tuition dollar associated with the potential migration of students from one sector to another, but not state dollars. There would be no corresponding shift of state funding from universities to community colleges in connection with this program.
Correct, and we're not, and the colleges are not asking for additional state funding to support the.
I want to give every commissioner a chance to comment, so I'll move to Commissioner Deborah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Heyman. I really appreciate the comments that have been made so far, and of course, the presentation, all the work that's happened. I find myself really torn here in this issue because I find myself very attracted to the BASE proposal, to the program that's being envisioned here. But it's still not clear to me that we need a new degree in order to offer this program. Back when I was chairing the Senate Education Committee, I was doing it as we were coming out of COVID. And as we were coming out of COVID, we became aware of the huge challenges that school districts were facing with their workforce. We came to realize that, this was so many things related to COVID. This was not a new program, but COVID brought it to the urgency point. And we were having challenges with teachers, with instructional assistants, with substitute teachers that were lax in all of those areas. And, I convened some task forces to look into this, which were very large. These were the initial days of Zoom. So we had a lot of people in these meetings. We had a lot of discussions around this problem. And, what we discovered is a lot of what you've heard in support of the BASE program. That is, the shortages are most acute, we found, in 3 areas. One being special education. The second being rural educators, attracting people to teach in rural schools and keeping them in schools. And the third being meeting our goals for diversifying our workforce. And, looking at solutions to those problems, we became very interested in grow your own ponds. And I think we actually did some funding to help pursue that, which unfortunately the last legislature has not chosen to continue. But grow your own is, really, I think, something that needs to be pursued.
It is foundational to this particular model.
Really, absolutely. And that's what makes it really attractive. As does, I think, just the fact that it's a consortium, which, as we're having these conversations around 4124, we want to see more partnerships. And the idea that it's kind of statewide and that it's, using online learning so that people can stay in their homes with some, local work, local student teaching and practicums, apprenticeship type situations coordinated through the community colleges. That all really makes sense. And especially as we're seeing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but only half of our new educators are coming out of Oregon schools. Many of them are coming out of state distance learning kinds of programs. Having something that would be rooted in our public institutions here in Oregon as an alternative, is, I think, very attractive. But it does still come to that core question: why couldn't one of the partners be a university and use the existing degree that's there, and that would, certainly would eliminate any potential issues around the value of the degree. It would be an existing university degree. And so, my question is, why is a university not stepping up to be part of this? Is it, is it just too innovative? Is it too out of the loop? It seems that some of the universities are tiptoeing in this realm. But why couldn't they be part of it? Is there concern that, if they were part of it, they would have to truly be part of it, one partner among many, as opposed to controlling it. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's a control issue. I'm not sure, but I think that is this commission, by its nature, is designed to create partnerships between the colleges and the universities. That's a big part of why it was created. And so what is there that could be done to make that happen? That's a question that I would have.
And once again, I would refer back to the partnership that is coming out of the development of the base piece and the convenings that we facilitated for them and the increased partnership. I don't think it's that the universities aren't engaging in the conversation. It's just that the need is so great in the rural communities, and the K-12 system is needing help.
Thank you. I'm going to remind us, we've exceeded our time for this. I believe it's important that every commissioner have an opportunity, but ask you to cooperate and be efficient in your comments. We're only halfway through. We're probably not going to get back to follow up. So just to know you, I want to make it through this and then decide how to go forward. And every commissioner needs an opportunity by a question or a comment. So Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Donna, so much for this presentation, and thank you to everyone who has given public comments so far. I'm definitely not unsympathetic to some of the issues raised in the public comment period, especially regarding HB 4124 and the overview that that's going to provide the state higher education system, and the point raised by Representative Evans about the financial salience of Southern Oregon University and the effect that this could have on that campus. However, I also do want to refer to the written testimony provided by the president of the University of Oregon Faculty Senate, saying that the 6-month time frame provided for HB 4124 and to provide a comprehensive overview of all of Oregon's public higher education systems is very condensed and will likely not allow us to go in depth into any specific program. It will likely just be able to give us a higher level overview of what the system is and isn't doing currently. So I very much doubt that postponing this decision in accordance to HB 4124 is going to provide much clarity in regards to the base program specifically. There are many aspects of this program and the testimony given by staff and by the public alike that have resonated with me. I have friends who have gotten jobs at rural institutions, but left those jobs because for family reasons, to live closer to friends, to live closer to the city. And so I do realize the difficulty of maintaining the staffing in these rural school districts. One of the things I do want to point out is that if we go to the Oregon Teachers Workforce Study that was conducted by the Oregon Longitudinal Data Collaborative that is linked in the meeting notes, it is very clear that there is a current shortage in the amount of teachers that we do have in the state, and that in the past 10 years, Oregon institutions have never produced more than 1,000 Oregon trained educators. And in recent years, there's been a lot more folks looking to get into teaching in Oregon to fulfill long-standing vacancies in the state, and our current pathways are not keeping up. And so when we're looking at the base program, especially hearing that there's not going to be a significant fiscal attached, as you had mentioned, what I'm hearing, especially with there only being 30 students involved in the first classes that is going to graduate in 2029, I believe. This sounds like a pilot program, and it sounds like a pilot program that is deeply necessary due to the current shortages that we suffer from and the systemic reasons behind those shortages. It really does seem like the status quo is not working, and so I'm not persuaded by the folks coming and saying that we just need a better way of directing students to our current programs, because that sounds like tweaking the status quo. And if the pathways that currently existed were enough to satisfy the need, we would not currently be in this position where we have thousands of students and thousands of dollars being sent out of state to train Oregon teachers. And especially looking at this through an equity lens, when the retention rate for teachers of color, a specific area of emphasis for this commission and statewide, is much higher for Oregon trained educators than for out of state trained educators. This is something that I really believe that we need to act quickly or we miss the boat. And the fact that this is such a small scale leads me to believe that this is not going to have, and like Donna said, a significant adverse effect on university programs, at least for the foreseeable future. During which time, this commission will have the time to reconvene, assess, and react appropriately. So I thank you for everybody for your proposals, and especially for the K-12 educators who approached the community colleges to create this consortium in the first place, out of a sense of need in their communities and trying to solve the systemic issues that are really being faced, and that the challenges that are being faced, especially by these rural school districts. And I will be voting yes for approval on this measure.
Commissioner Davis will share.
Yes, thank you, Chair Heyman, and everyone who's spoke to the public speaking portion, and all the commissioners who spoke as well. I do second what Commissioner Cook was saying in terms of status quo, that we definitely have a dire need. As someone who was in public education in Oregon from 2005 through my entire life, I can definitely see that we need more teachers more than ever. And so I do recognize the short-term and the long-term benefits. There are just some long-term potential unseen or unintended consequences, perhaps. Like for example, from my notes here. So I know that this will definitely benefit rural Oregon, and we definitely need more attention on them, absolutely. But as mentioned before, or I think Donna, you mentioned that there are some people who will still move after getting their degree, and so due to lack of funding from whichever region of Oregon. And so with this program, what is going to be in place to help deter people from moving away, even if they are establishing their community, and like they say they are, but life happens, life events happen, and so what is in place to help them stay if their needs are being met after school? So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does make a lot of sense, Commissioner. Thank you for the question. It's really hard to say. I mean, I'm just going to be honest, but what we have found through looking at the data and through the interviews and whatnot is that people are more invested in staying and aren't looking to leave actively, which helps greatly increase the retention rates of those who are trained and educated in their home community.
Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you, Chair. I had a quick question for Donna about the caps that you spoke. You start with 6 for college, which means a cap of 30 statewide, and then you said, I think, up to 50 per cohort.
Yes, and the reason I suggested 50 is to allow for expansion should the need be greater than initially thought.
But with that, within that 3-year review period where you're responding to the different needs.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And thank you for the presentation and for everybody who testified, for all of the comments that have come from fellow commissioners so far. I also appreciate the grow your own model. I think this is an excellent example of that. And I think that by their nature, community colleges are perhaps more nimble. I've spent most of my career working at community colleges in there. They are responding to community need. It's been said many times before. The need is very evident. And I also have concern about there not being the path in our Oregon colleges for the master's degree. I know that RCC and SOU work very closely together, and I can't imagine if we pass this today that there won't be a program adopted in a very short amount of time. And so I strongly am in favor of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Fajardo.
Yeah, a couple of comments. I just from gathering this, I'm wondering if Donna, there's a kind of directional estimate of the economic incentives or impact to the universities from this program. You mentioned 30 to 50 students, but it seems like that would probably be kind of, there's guardrails around that. But do you have an estimate of what that economic incentive might be for the university?
Yeah, I honestly do not have, but would be happy to bring that information back.
Okay, thank you. Second comment is, certainly there's an economic incentive of place-bound students, because if you're talking about having to maintain a job or juggle family that may have not been mobile, it seems like it's a very binary question of whether they will be able to pursue post-secondary education at all. And I guess I would just take this opportunity to remind the commission of the primacy of the students to this commission and the student experience, and making sure the students, we further their opportunity to get post-secondary education. And it seems like, I think, general agreement with the thoughts echoed by my fellow commissioners that having this channel of post-secondary education and reaching place-bound students would be a good thing. I think we've got the guardrails in place through the basic agreement on continued dialogue, continued discussion, evaluation of what amounts to a pilot study. I think that's a good thing, and I will move there.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Andrews.
I don't think she heard you.
Sorry. I was calling on Commissioner Andrews.
Sorry, I was having a really hard time unmuting. I appreciate the conversation, and I'm just checking off the boxes of an agreement in my head. I too have a lot of experience in working with people in grow your own programs. I feel the connection with community college is very important, and that the teachers are moving around to roles that suit them. Sometimes after they get in their initial role and they find out maybe what fits them best, or sometimes sometimes we go to get higher education and we find out that our degree is not the perfect one for us. So I think an expectation that teachers do move around is reasonable. And I just feel like more teachers we just need more teachers, and we need more of these programs. So I tend to agree. I appreciate everything that has been mentioned today, and that though we may not be cutting edge innovation, that progress is being made. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have Commissioner Edwards on.
Commissioner Edwards may have had to step away.
Okay. Is there any other commissioner online? Okay, then I am going to state my opinion. Since I get to do that. Greatly appreciative of the work that's put into this, the concerns, the questions, and supports issued. I also have a sense of timeliness, and so if it comes to a vote today, I will support that vote. And we have had a lot of conversation. I'm going to entertain a motion.
I'd like to call the question to approve agenda item 7.0.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, to explanation here. If it failed, it isn't the end of it. It simply means that this does not happen today. But I also want to remind us that there is a time component to this decision as well. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I would
Commissioner.
just since we're normally with discussion, I just wanted to give a brief explanation.
What? Yes.
I do have a lot of concerns, but I do believe that the community colleges have followed the process that we put in place. in many cases, I don't believe the students that enter these programs are going to be students that would have entered programs that are university system because of the restrictions in their daily lives. So I think that's a benefit. I don't know if my statistics are valid anymore, but I do remember from a decade or more ago, statistics that said for every teacher that we educate, about 50% leave the profession within 5 years. If these people are largely working in the system now and have been teachers' assistants for 5 or 6 years or some other capacity, they know what they're getting into. A lot more sometimes than somebody's that's just at the end of their academic education and going into their, their classroom process. So I don't think there's a reason, really a valid reason for me to.
Okay.
So I'll be voting on it.
Does anyone other need a limited explaining what your vote's going to be? Thank you.
No, I actually just have a question, just for clarification of the implications of this vote. As it's been presented, we're talking about a kind of pilot project. And this degree is being authorized just for the purposes of this pilot project. That's something I'd like clarity on.
Yeah, it's a good question. So what you have heard today is that the proposing colleges accept that they will limit their cohort size to 50 for the first 3 years of this program, if it's approved. I do want to be clear, since we used the word pilot, once it's approved, there's not a mechanism to disapprove it. And if the commission took no further action, it would go into a 4th year, and a 5th year, it would be in effect permanently approved. But I think you've also heard from the colleges a commitment to a review process and consideration of the impacts during that 3-year period, and reporting back to the HECC and to our staff on the impacts at that point. But we are not giving a time limited. I do want to be really clear to that. The motion and the approval is not for a 3-year pilot. It is for approval of these programs with an understanding that the colleges are committing to an enrollment cap for the first 3 years and 3 cohorts.
And also a collaborative evaluation of that program with that period of time.
And just further, so colleges could only offer these degrees through this program. Is that correct?
I have a point of information. Based on the recommendations that the HECC submitted to the legislature that resulted in HB 4124, that gives HECC the rights to oversee programs at post-secondary education institutions in the state. Does that, is it not?
It is. It is in the conversation. It's not an authority.
Nothing has changed about that law.
Understood, thank you.
Okay,
Just one, real quick one.
Commissioner Yamasaki, yes.
So Donna, you alluded though that the upper division classes would be taught by the community colleges, not offered by the universities. Is that?
That is correct. That is correct. It would be offered, they would be, offered by
And the 5 community colleges, and none of them would be
right,
taught by university,
correct.
the upper division.
Whether in state or out of state, for your provider, the community colleges would be providing all 4 years of the Bachelor's of Applied Science and Education.
Okay.
Just like every other Bachelor's of Applied Science degree.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you said.
I would make it.
I want to remind us that regardless of who is the institution providing the program, they all have to meet the same accreditation and content requirements. So, just right. We're going to move on the.
I have one last question. So I know that, so the 3 years, there is a cap of 50 cohorts. And so is it mapped out for beyond those 3 years?
No, that would be based on the collaborative evaluation of the success of the program. Okay. You have a comment?
Just a comment before we move to a vote, a reminder to the commission that under Oregon law associated with the HECC, for a motion to be adopted requires 8 votes, a majority of members of the commission, regardless of attendance. So, you know, eight yes votes are required for a motion to be adopted.
Thank you. We're going to do a roll call vote. I want it on the record, and Dr. Reed, I'll ask that you call the roll.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I will now call a roll call vote. Greg Hayman, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Emily Simnett, how do you vote?
No.
Demetrius Davis Boucher, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael Dembro, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Richard Devlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Helen Edwards, how do you vote? As excused, Arnell Fajardo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ellen Coker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Teresa Martinez, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Jen Proctor Andrews, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary Middleton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jennifer Smith, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail Yamasaki, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. That is the roll call vote. With 7 in favor, the vote is not. Excuse me. Greg votes in favor, Greg Hayman, Demetrius Davis Boucher, Richard Devlin, Arnell Fajardo, Ellen Coker, Ben Proctor Andrews, Mary Middleton, Jennifer Smith. That is 8 in favor, and the vote passes.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your very deep participation, thoughtful, press of this issue. And we'll be working hard with Donna and people in this program to evaluate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything? Everybody take a quick break, really quick. Let's go. 5.
Okay. 5.
I did. Yeah, I just.
But I think you had to.
Wait for you.
Likes to be one, yeah.
And ready to reconvene, Chair.
Thank you so much. I think we suggested, revisions on the agenda.
Yeah, we're gonna shorten a few items. So we're gonna follow the agenda order, but we're gonna be, take, probably half the time that we had planned to dedicate to the next item. So only about 10 minutes on our post-secondary education study process. And we'll also shorten the items 9.2 and 10.0. So 10 to 15 here, and then we'll figure it out, Mr. Chairman. We're gonna go in order.
Then we will move on to item 8.0. We made some reference to it already. So,
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll invite Robin Harkless from Oregon Consensus to turn her camera on if she is online. There she is. I will introduce this and then allow Robin to introduce herself. But as Commission is well aware, House Bill 4124 adopted during the 2026 legislative session assigns to this commission a pretty substantial and important body of work over the next year. Some references have been made to deadlines. I just want to clarify that we have an interim report to the legislature of this higher education study October 1st and a final report April 1st of 2027, so about a year from today. The docket item in your packet, item 8.0, describes where we are in process, and the most significant report for me to share is that we have contracted with Oregon Consensus to conduct an assessment of interested parties and their perspectives on this project that will help inform the process that we use to reach a set of recommendations for the legislature about a year from now. And so with that, I think I'll invite Robin to talk about the work that she is leading at Oregon Consensus to provide us with that assessment and those recommendations. Robin.
Thank you, Ben. And hello, Commission. Thanks so much for having us today. It's an honor to be here. My name is Robin Harkless, and I direct the program Oregon Consensus. Just to give you a little sense of who we are, what we're about. We were established by statute to be the state of Oregon's program for public policy, conflict resolution, and collaborative governance. We provide mediation, other collaborative services to public bodies and other interested parties who want to take a collaborative agreement-seeking approach to challenging public issues. We usually always start with an assessment, which is what we're doing in this case, and where appropriate, help design and facilitate impartial, transparent, collaborative processes that foster equitable participation and work toward durable agreements. So a little bit about the study bill and what we're doing is this situational assessment. And I'm not sure if someone is running the slides for me, but you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So our general guiding question always in our assessment is it's a yes/no question to start, which is a collaborative approach the right path? And we listen for things like what authorities, recognition of interdependencies, time and resources, and power dynamics are at play in this ecosystem, let's call it. And we then, if there's a yes to those questions, if there is a collaborative approach pathway there, Then we move on to how is the group best organized to achieve its desired outcomes through a collaborative process. And we try to really hone in on what should be the frame and scope of issues. So that's kind of the substantive bounds of the conversation. Do we have trusted conveners? Usually there's a convener that helps to sort of guide and lead the process. And then what are the roles and responsibilities and commitments of the participants who will be kind of leaning in and doing joint problem solving around the issues? And one kind of other critical question is how decision making is occurring. If you go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about the specifics of this situational assessment. So essentially, we'll be conducting interviews and small group conversations over the course of March, April, and maybe into a little bit of early May. We have one-on-one interviews with university leadership. We have focus group or small group series for union, faculty, community college, and student leadership groups. One-on-one and focus group meetings with workforce and economic development interests, as well as foundations and community-based organizations. And focus groups one-on-one or standing quarterly updates for tribal higher education leaders. And in addition, we have chosen to hold a couple spaces, we're calling them office hours, for input opportunity and just kind of keeping interested legislators apprised of this really early phase of the effort. If we go to the next slide, so that's one of the questions that we're also sort of trying to filter through these discussions is there anyone that we're missing that we really should be talking to? So we've been given some good advice and we're iterating through that as we go. I will just say, just as a status update, the team, I have a great team around me. We're all working hard to make sure we can reach as many folks as we can in this early stage. To help advise on the process setup. It's really not about the outcomes yet, but about the process setup. And we've gotten really good responses and honestly are, I think, well on our way to completing that sort of suite of conversations by the end of this month, which was a little bit of a pleasant surprise to me, I'll be honest. And so here's what we're asking. The questions we're asking are, what would success out of this process look like to you? And where do you see there might be some aids to that success? And where might there be barriers to that success that we want to be aware of and even design for? There was a set of foundational principles that HECC identified and kind of put forward for kind of just like, how do we just lay down some pillars here for this work? And so we're testing those to see how those land with our various conversations, and also just asking if there are any additions, modifications, or refinements to those principles. And this may actually be a kind of a critical kind of first stop for whatever happens next with the project, is to really determine like where are the sort of the ways that we're going to go about this process, and what are some of the North Stars that we can collectively agree on at the outset for this work. We're, like I said, we're asking who else should we be talking with, and specifically, you know, how would you or your entity like to participate in this process? And there are lots of different forms that can take. One can be sort of direct deliberative space, working with other partners to problem solve, all the way to, I just want to make sure that we are aware of what's going on and that we have status updates along the way. So for everyone involved, there's no surprises at the end, that there is an ability to at least track these conversations, if not be at some level more deeply involved in engaging in the conversations. Another thing that we are asking about is because the legislation identifies very explicitly that HECC should engage a third-party consultant to help with this process. We're asking about what should be the scope of that work? How can that consultant work be most helpful? And even all the way to like what kind of qualifications or types of lines of inquiry should that consultant be ready to do? What sort of kind of strengths and expertise should they bring to this work? And then finally, just open-ended questions around process design ideas, and anything else that they feel like we should be asking early stage about, and giving us some input on that so that we can really fold this all up into what will become kind of an early assessment findings, as well as some process suggestions and observations or recommendations that go back to HECC for considering how we set the table and how we set the process up really well. So I think with that, we're open to, I guess, we're open to any other questions that the HECC commissioners are curious about. That's one thing. If we have any, even a minute of time today, or even if you have some that you'd want to share back with HECC, just for our consideration at the outset. And then if you go to the last slide, I can give you just a quick sort of rundown of what our next steps are. So we're in conversations with the HECC team, just giving sort of iterative updates on thematic findings. I think as early as next week, we'll be able to start providing some input, for example, on how they formulate an RFP to get a third-party consultant. So we'll be starting to feed some of that advice forward as early as next week. Like I said, we're hoping to develop a report, and finalize that in early May. And that will include process design recommendations, and we're on hand to help form that. So provide some real assistance to HECC in formation of that process and really getting it set up well. And there is always the potential for ongoing support from a third-party process service like Oregon Consensus, ongoing. So that's a question, and we're listening for that, and can make that determination next month. And so with that, I think that's the highlights. I'm happy to answer a few questions or even take some advice from the commissioners at this stage of our work.
Do you have any comments, questions for Robin? Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Chair Human. Thank you for your report, and the process looks like a really solid process. I guess this is sort of a question comment. I think that what's going to be really crucial is building trust in the process. And I understand like the asking the questions and having the focus groups is the first step toward building trust. But I don't know if you could maybe speak a little bit more about how, what that looks like from your perspective, or how we're like, how can you ensure that the wide variety of stakeholders have a sense of trust in the process of putting together the review?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that in our conversations to date, that's been a pretty big theme that's been running through across all the different groups, that this is as much about building trust and transparency and clear-eyed conversations and the right level of engagement, which lends to trust in the process. So I think that's a really critical ingredient to how we set the process up. And that's honestly a big reason why we're out early asking these questions, so that we can try to be reflective of what people's needs are in that specific way. But I will just, put a marker that's a big theme that we're hearing across all the groups, that this is, there's a real need for this to be transparent, no surprises to anyone at the end, meaningful engagement. And so what that looks like is really kind of what we're working on right now. And we'll be offering up some different options, maybe a preferred option based on our expertise, but certainly just want to make sure that we're all really, really clear-eyed going into this about what those expectations will be. I can't be responsible for people building trust, but I can certainly try to help you design a process that lends to it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coker.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Hammond, and thank you for this presentation. The one quick thing I had is that we, for the last 15 years, have had the HECC as opposed to the Oregon University system. And we had been moving more towards decentralization, and now we're kind of drifting back the other way. So I think that bringing a historical lens to this overview and to the mission set forth by HB 4124 is going to be really important, figuring out what was working about OUS that we can look to either maintain or revive, and what wasn't working that caused the movement towards devolution. Because a lot about OUS was about consolidating things under a central authority, and there's a lot about that that didn't work for a lot of the schools in the state, hence the transition from that to the HECC. But I think figuring out what did function better under the old system and how we can slowly integrate that back into our current practice is going to be really important during this overview of our higher education systems.
Quick comments, questions? I have one, the issue of sort of how higher education should be structured, delivered, provided is certainly a conversation broader than Oregon. Lots of discussion, literature, research on sort of what does the future of higher education might look like. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on if, how, and when that perspective might be brought into this work.
Yeah, the perspective of outside of Oregon, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, sort of the broader academy and all, you know, all the research and thought
Yeah.
work that's being done on sort of what this should look like.
Yeah, in our line of inquiry around the working with a third party consultant, that spoiler alert, that's been one of the bits of advice thematically that's come through is how can we look to other places to help inform this conversation in a meaningful way? So I think it's we're trending toward like that being some version of that being a portion of the third party's work. And certainly there's probably other resources that could come to bear on it. I will say back to the question of trust, like trust in the information. So looking at it together, absorbing it together, doing sense making together, I'm going to suggest that that will be an important part, like foundational part of building trust, is that folks are looking at absorbing and deliberating on the information in a meaningful way. And so part of that is, yeah, how do we look to other places to help us be better informed in this deliberative conversation?
Mr. Dembro.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Following up on the comments that Commissioner Coker made, I think some key players here will be Board of Trustees members, both at the universities and the colleges. And, when we allowed universities to have local boards, their trustees were charged with a dual fiduciary responsibility. Right, they have a responsibility to their institutions to make sure they're run correctly and are responsive to their local communities. And they also have a fiduciary responsibility to the state as a whole and to students everywhere in Oregon. And articulating what that actually means, I think, is going to have to be a key part of this process. And I think, your work in engaging with them to kind of figure out the context for that conversation, I think will be very important. And I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Look forward to moving forward with this.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And we look forward to another stop along the way with you all.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 9. And I think we're going to receive a report from Vice Chair Simnett on
our funding and achievement.
Funding and Achievement Subcommittee.
Yes, the Funding and Achievement Subcommittee met yesterday, and I will not take my full 10 minutes. I could if you really want me to. Actually, again, this was a information only meeting, so the committee or subcommittee did not take any advisory votes. We did hear a really helpful primer on the budgeting process from Director Cannon, and there is a PowerPoint presentation in your packet from the FNA materials that I highly encourage you to review if you haven't already. It's a really good, helped us understand what the limitations are in our role in helping to make an agency budget recommendation to the governor, who will then make the budget recommendation to the legislature. We had a lively discussion about the CSL again. It's a recurring theme. And it is actually, again, if anyone wants to know more about budget issues, I would invite you to come to our FNA meetings, because in addition to hearing from our staff who are very well versed in that, we have a number of members who have a lot of experience, who can ask in the way they ask questions and provide background is really useful for me, who has less experience in Oregon State legislature. And then we also heard updates on 2 work groups, one group that is setting the Community College Support Fund and one the Public University Support Fund. Just to give you really broad strokes of what those work groups are working on, the Public University Support working group is looking on the area of study bonus, the Engineering Technology Sustaining Fund, and transfer alignment. This is primarily a technical review, and we will hear recommendations later this year on that, starting in the FNA committee, and then moving forward, depending on where those go. And then the Community College Support Group has a technical review of the student support and success calculations and some data reporting. They are also discussing the prerequisite developmental education changes and how funding will work for that, which may be why we had so much testimony today about the developmental education. The working group has not made any recommendations or decisions on that, but that is something that we can expect, I believe, coming forward. And I would encourage anyone who has questions about what that work group is looking at specifically to, can I refer them to Jim?
Yes.
To contact Jim Pinker, and he can give you more background on that, and which would, I think, help contextualize some of the public testimony here today. And with that, my report is complete unless any the other members from the FNA subcommittee have anything else they'd like to
Any
add.
questions for our chair of the Funding and Achievement Subcommittee?
Yes, thank you. So this builds nicely because I will brief you briefly on the urgent work to develop an agency request budget. Item 9.2A describes the calendar and touch points, including today, for your work on our 2027-29 agency request budget. That calendar shows it coming back to the full commission or coming to the full commission for final adoption in August. But much of the work substantively on that budget occurs at the staff level and in coordination with the FNA subcommittee and the full commission over the next couple of months. There's more detail in 9.A about those touch points, as well as about sort of the general structure of the agency request budget, which takes current service level and then adds or subtracts budget recommendations for policy option packages. Item 9.2B describes some of the emerging staff level thoughts about policy option packages. But before I touch on those, let me just note, as reflected in 9.2B, that we have received instructions from the state's chief financial office and the governor on agency request budgets. And importantly, those instructions tell us that we are not to request through policy option packages new investments above current service level unless they are offset by reductions below current service level within the HECC budget. So any increase in funding that we want to request needs to be offset with reduction in order to stay in conformity with the governor's instructions. There are a couple of exceptions to that if the law, if recently adopted law requires a new investment, and that would qualify for an exception. Likewise, approved information technology projects, modernization projects are also not subject to that requirement. So 9.2B, as I noted, it contains brief descriptions of a handful of emerging, more than a handful, a couple of handfuls of emerging potential policy option packages for inclusion within our budget. The first of those is continued work on the agency modernization. This would be